Hey everyone, it's Nina. Today I am going to talk about my experiences with my completely open heart. So I don't have any gates in my heart at all, so completely white, completely empty, and it's actually one of the first centers that I really became highly aware of in my deconditioning process that kind of like broke me down. And this was actually before I even discovered human design. So to give you guys a little bit of a background, this was like 3 or 4 years ago, but I went to I'd been working with plant medicine for a while, and then I decided to go down and do 4 nights in a row of ayahuasca with my partner at the time. And it was a beautiful but very difficult week. Because throughout the week, it was almost as if like my entire identity was breaking down. So also kind of part of my open G center, but with my open heart, I began to realize how much of inauthentic life that I was living and how much I was kind of living a life for others, and that I didn't really like who I was and the life that I was living and why I was doing things. And so that was like probably 6 months before I found human design. And looking back on it now, I'm like, it was kind of like a good way to ease me into human design a little bit, because when I went through kind of like that little awakening, after doing this 4 nights of ayahuasca, it was like, it kind of just completely shattered this illusion that I had of myself and like my entire like purpose basically in life, because I had been choosing like making life decisions based off what I thought other people would think of me, or what I'd been conditioned to think, or that I wanted other people to like me, or you know, like even with like Instagram and Facebook and all of that, like just doing things because I wanted people to see me in a certain light or respect me in a certain way. And so I was carrying out all of these tasks, living my life like a manifesting generator, and was doing all these things that didn't even bring me joy. And so kind of fast forward to 6 months, I discovered human design, I learned about my open heart, and then another year or so later, I started doing actual training. I took a Living Your Design course, and during that course, I had like a complete breakdown, because as we were learning about the different centers, it was like, I just had these massive downloads and visions of like where in my entire life, like from when I was little all the way up to my current life, where I was doing things for other people, and how I basically didn't even like know who I was. Like my identity, I feel like, has been like breaking down slowly over the past, I don't know, like 5 or 6 years, where I'm like, wow, this isn't even something I want to do. This isn't the life that I want to live. And so it just became more and more clear to me as I got more deeper into my human design experiment that my completely open heart was just making decisions from an inauthentic and like, I want to say needy place, but kind of like a needy place, because what I began to really realize was, when I was teaching yoga, when I was building out like courses for yoga, like I was really into Instagram in my 20s, and tried everything that I could to like gain followers and likes and all of that. And like, which as a side note, like social media is probably like the worst place for people with open hearts to be on, because it's like we're just constantly seeking validation. And it became very, very clear to me that the content that I was creating, I was spending hours and hours and like planning my days around taking pictures and like filming videos so that I could do like how-to videos for yoga and personal training and workouts, and posting them to my social media, and just constantly trying to increase my followers so that I could make more of a business out of yoga and personal training, and do it more from an online landscape, which is all fine, but it really wasn't sustainable for me as a manifestor. I didn't have that sacral energy to tap into. I don't have a root. I don't have a heart, or a defined heart. And so it makes it a little bit more difficult because I don't have those motors. I have a defined solar plexus, a very lit up solar plexus, and I definitely get energy from that, but it really ebbs and flows, as you know about the solar plexus. So I began to really reflect back on, you know, what I was doing and why I was doing things I was doing, and it was very humbling because I was like, wow, I'm really creating these things that I don't even want to be creating. I'm taking all my time up to film these videos for something that from like a conscious perspective, I didn't feel like was contributing to the collective, and also just expanding the collective consciousness. And I'm on the right angle cross of consciousness. So if something isn't progressing forward or building on something that's, you know, already here, to me, it's kind of like a waste of my time. I constantly want to be improving on things or looking at things from a different way in order to like progress and move things forward, especially from like a conscious perspective. So, you know, not that yoga and all of that isn't conscious. For me, it was kind of like I'd been there, I'd done that, I understood it and I embodied it myself, but I felt like there was something much more deeper that I needed to share. And I wasn't quite sure how to share that yet, but I was kind of like stuck in this loop and stuck in this mindset of like, oh, I need to be doing this and I need to prove myself and I need to have a ton of followers because people will respect me, which means that they'll like me and they'll love me. And it was like this never ending like loop for I don't know how many years that I really went on on social media to try to do that and kind of built my business around that like generator hustle mindset. And so when I really got into human design, it was just like another identity that was broken down. And I actually got off social media for about a year because it really like just turned me off to be on there, because I began, especially as I'm a sixth line, as I climbed onto the roof in my 30s, I started to see things from a different perspective, and I was like, why are people doing this? Why do they post these things? Like, it just seems so ridiculous, and like it keeps getting more and more ridiculous to me personally when I watch it. But you know, everyone has a reason for why they do the things that they do. I don't know what's going on in people's minds. I just see a lot of not self, and I say that because I was in it as well, and I still get caught up in it as well. But I took a year off social media, and when I came back on the platform, I was like, this place is kind of like a shit show, but it's a way that I stay connected with friends and how I meet people. And then also I just learned so much through human design through that platform, and you know, send people my social media profiles, you know, for like my clients and people that I meet. So I needed to be able to continue to work on the platform, but I wanted to do it in my own way, and I wanted to do it from an authentic way. And so as I was kind of like paying more attention to my open heart and saying, okay, like what brings me joy, what comes from a place of self-love, what do I enjoy doing? And so I decided that any content that I create, it's gonna be from an urge that I'm emotionally clear on, that I feel really good on, and that I share more deeper aspects of myself, or just more authentic aspects of myself. I'm not following any rules of an algorithm. I'm not gonna spend, you know, hours and hours editing something unless I actually really, really enjoy it. And it comes from a place of like me being creative and enjoying that creative process versus, you know, me doing something and then being like, oh, I'm gonna post this and I want all these people to like it. Like, I really don't care. Like, whenever I post something now, it has to meet these requirements of I'm doing this because it feels right for me. I worked through an emotional wave, and I feel like it shows like the real me, and it's not some like something that I've created because it's gonna do well in the algorithm, and I'm not gonna be like the other yoga accounts or like other Instagrammers that like show their butts all the time. Like, that's not really what I'm trying to portray about myself. And I just want to share my experiences. So with my 35, 36, I'm like, okay, I'm going through my experiences and I'm going to share them with people once I've reflected on them and had the experience. And when I am in the mood and I feel like I'm ready to share, my 1222 kind of steps in. I have the 12th gate, 12.4 in Mercury. And so the way that I communicate can be very mutative in the right timing. And so there are a lot of things that I take into consideration when I post that I'm not really like consciously thinking about, but like as I've continued to kind of break down and evaluate like how much my open heart was affecting my decisions, I began to see how my channels and how my gifts in my chart were able to kind of come out more into the open, and I could see where I was in more alignment with my chart when I began to decondition my open heart. So that was a really big lesson for me, and it's something that I'm still catching myself, like, why am I doing these things? Sometimes I'll say yes to things or people because I'm like, oh, like I'll get something from this, or someone will like give me recognition, or I can try to prove somebody, you know, that I can do this, or play the guitar, or do a cool yoga move or whatever. And it's like, I literally feel like sometimes I need to sit down and just like tie myself to a chair, because it's like the heart is constantly wanting to prove itself. Or I'll go to a yoga class and it'll be filled with people, and I'll be like, you know, in the back kind of watching everyone and being like, all right, who's better than me? And it's like this competition during class, and I'm like, what am I doing? And so I just have to laugh about like how competitive my open heart is. And that's another thing. Like, I'm like a sore loser because ever since I was little, I would just get so upset when I would lose, and just kind of like throw a hissy fit or a temper tantrum because I hated losing, and I would get really, really angry. And so like just super competitive with people. And so I will say, having an open heart, you don't have that willpower like someone does when they have a defined heart. But when we're around a defined heart, especially like when I'm in a yoga class with a bunch of, you know, people who have defined hearts, or especially sacrals, I'm like, all right, let's go. And I feel like I have that drive. And so just being aware of that aspect as well. There can be burnout when you're constantly trying to prove yourself, when you don't have that open sacral, or you don't have any other motor centers. So, you know, it is really just a trip, like looking at the mechanics of the chart and seeing like how each of our centers, defined or undefined, affects different centers. And the more that we decondition, the more that we can shine, like the more of our talents and our gifts really come out and can be seen more clearly by ourselves and by other people around us. And so, yeah, I just wanted to share my experience of having an open heart and kind of what my deconditioning experience has been. I don't want to say that, like, you know, there are these specific tools that I use in order to, you know, begin to decondition my completely open heart. But I think for me, it was just that awareness that human design gave me of like, you know, here's kind of your shit, here's your shadow aspect of having this open center. Not that it's like a negative thing, it's just more like, oh, okay, these are aspects of myself that I would like to take a deeper dive into. And sometimes that can be really difficult. And our mind doesn't want us to see that, because it means we're going to break down identities, we're going to change things in our lives that we are really comfortable with. And so deconditioning the open heart was difficult for me, but I wanted it. Like, I wanted it because it led me to more of a place of authenticity. And it was more of just like moment to moment before I made decisions. I would come back to my authority, which is an emotional authority, and I would say, how does this feel? And I would wait it out. And patience was like a really, really big thing for me before I would make decisions to do things, because before I was making decisions and saying like, I want to do this because someone's going to like me. And having that expanded awareness, I was able to begin to really catch myself in the moment and say, no, what is your intention here? Like, be honest with yourself. Why do you want to go? Are you going because you want to prove something, or because your mind is saying this is what you need to do in order to level up, or whatever, instead of tapping into that emotional authority, or, you know, whatever authority that you have. And so it became kind of like a little bit of a game for me to see like how much patience I needed, especially working with the solar plexus before I'd make decisions, instead of allowing the not self and my open heart make all of those decisions. So I'm curious what everyone else's experience is with your open hearts, or if you have a defined heart, what that experience is like being around open hearts. I will say I have dated people with open or defined hearts in the past, and it's definitely made me feel more competitive in the relationship, but then also a little bit resentful in some ways, and that's just kind of like not self aspects. But I will say with an open heart, I do find myself volunteering to do things more, like, you know, cleaning the house or cleaning the dishes, or saying yes to things that, even though I'm tired and burnt out, I'm still saying yes to things, and it's not really healthy for me to say yes to. And I feel like the defined hearts maybe don't necessarily have that awareness. Just in my personal experience, I'm not saying all defined hearts are like this, but I've noticed that there's almost like this, like they're not necessarily thinking about the other person as much. And like I said, not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's really just the mechanics of people's charts, because I feel like with people with open hearts, there's more of a childlike innocence and like pureness about it, because at the core, we're just seeking that love and that acceptance, and we have that need to be recognized and to be seen and to be accepted. So I think that there is, you know, just something that you just want to say, like, oh, like you just want to like love on those people with open hearts, because you know that they are constantly, the not self is constantly striving to prove their worthiness, and you just want to like take their hands and tell them like, you are worthy, you are enough. And you know, that's kind of like how I wish I had been taught at a young age. And so, you know, I think a lot of that is also inner child work as well, going back to that little kid inside of you, and just giving them so many hugs and telling them like, you're good enough, like you don't have to prove anything, like asking yourself, what do you want to do? And so it can be a very healing process when you approach the open heart from a different perspective. So yeah, that's my take. I think that's all I have on the open heart for now. I'm sure I'll have more later. I'll remember some more things later, but I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.